Hello. Wow, this is a powerful mic. I like this. Very well-behaved audience. I like it. All right. Wrong card. All right. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jason Kelly. Welcome to our breakout briefing, Innovating and Investing in College Sports Prevented and presented by Invesco QQQ, our good friends there in the back. Obviously, as you heard, and as you all know, college sports, are just in this incredible moment. There are some great storylines on the field, but obviously a lot's going on off the field. We had an amazing discussion downstairs, but now we're going to get a different perspective. We're going to get the Ivy League point of view, and then we'll hear from Elevate. This is a company who helps colleges maximize engagement and revenue from their fans. To start things off, I do want to reiterate our thanks to the title sponsor, Invesco QQQ, for making this whole day and this breakout session possible. And so with that, please join me in welcoming Ryan McCormick. He's the Senior Director, Factor and QQQ Equity Product Strategy at Invesco, for some opening remarks. Here he comes. Look at that dramatic entrance along the glass. Wow, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool.
That wasn't bad.
All right, good
Thanks,
to see
man.
you.
You too. Thank you. And thanks, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Again, my name's Ryan McCormick. I'm a Senior Director of Factor and QQQ Product Strategy at Invesco. And all that mouthful means is it's a fancy way of saying I cover like 110 ETFs, or exchange-traded funds. Probably none more famous than Invesco QQQ, which I always joke, if you watch CNBC, or better yet, if you watch the NCAA basketball tournament, you probably go about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes without seeing a commercial. So it's a lot of eyes, and it's been an amazing journey for us kind of entering into the world of athletics, and specifically college athletics in this front. As always, we have to thank Bloomberg. This is our second year sponsoring Power Players, and I've got to say, like, the energy in this conference is unlike probably any of the others that we do. I think it's very unique. I think it sort of emphasizes the growth that we've seen in the world of athletics, and us being sort of like on the fringe of athletics. It's amazing just to kind of be a part of the momentum. So just very briefly, Invesco QQQ, like I said, is the 5th largest ETF in the world, and it tracks the NASDAQ 100 index, which is just the 100 largest companies, ex-financials, listed on the NASDAQ exchange. Companies that make products and services that you use every week, every day, probably multiple times a day, every hour. We look at kind of why these companies have been so successful over the past 25, 26 years, which is how long QQQ has been in existence. And we point to this notion of innovation, which I really like to say it's the ability to change. It's the ability to stay ahead of changing consumer trends, changing consumer preferences. And I think a lot of that it begins with this fuel that these companies just invest in themselves through research and development. They do it at a greater clip, at a greater magnitude than their peers. And so that kind of gives them the edge in terms of growth that we've seen within the market, and ultimately their success. And I think, obviously, you look at sort of investing, innovative. A lot of it is an investment in yourself. The world is ever changing, and to be able to stay ahead of those changing trends, you need to take some novel approaches. And I think that aligns very, very hand in hand when you look at college athletics. So if you just look at the last, certainly 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, the landscape of college athletics has changed dramatically, right? The introduction of NIL, sponsorships in general. You're looking at private equity, potentially looking at stakes in athletic departments. Changing by the day. So I'm super excited to hear from our panelists about investing and innovating across college sports. And once again, thanks to Bloomberg. It's great to be a part of this event, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the programming. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janet Lauren. I'm a higher ed finance reporter here at Bloomberg. You heard me this morning, and it's my pleasure to be here with Mike Harity, athletic director at Dartmouth. So let's set the stage. We heard earlier today about athletic directors paying their athletes to the tune of $20.5 million a year. We are now shifting to the Ivy League, where players are not paid. It's a very different financial model because financial aid is based on income and family income, and not on merit and not on your ability to play. In fact, you could show up at Dartmouth and on your first day decide not to play the sport you're recruited to. So can you set the stage for us? Why is it so different?
Yeah, in so many ways. But first, I just want to say thank you for having me and from Dartmouth here, and thank you to everybody coming here. I heard there was a lot of Ivy League graduates here. Are there any Dartmouth graduates here in the room today? I was told it was VIP, but apparently not too VIP. There's not a Dartmouth grad. So yeah, burn. That's right. It is really different. You know, I've had the good fortune to work at Power 4 institutions, University of Notre Dame for nearly 8.5 years, and the way we view it is you hit on it. Really central to the way we think about it is three things: the primacy of academics, number one. In athletics, the financial aid is all need-based. So just as you said, it's not based on athletic ability. The person can come and quit a day in, a year in, and they still retain their financial aid package. And then, as we think about the bigger picture of it, it's really broad-based sport, offerings. And I think that's something that a lot of my colleagues are thinking about. You heard that earlier on the panel. And that's really central to it because at our core, we view athletics as an educational endeavor. It's an extension of Dartmouth College's mission. And the classrooms just happen to be stadiums and tracks and pools. And we consider our coaches coach educators. So it's really, in this time, we see a lot of opportunity at this time. And I know we'll get more into that as we go on.
So we've talked a little bit in the earlier conference, actually quite a lot, about NIL, name, image and likeness, settlements. As we talked about, the Ivy League is not participating in those settlements, so they're not paying players. So what are the rules for NIL in the Ivy League? Do you have to approve or attest to anything?
Yeah, first and foremost, our presidents of the 8 institutions have made it clear that we believe in true name, image, and likeness. What that is just as any student would have access to, a varsity student athlete can have a sports camp in their hometown where they're teaching their sports skills. Somebody with an entrepreneurial spirit can start their own company and so on. That's real name, image, and likeness. Pay for play is not that, and our presidents have made it clear that we are not. It's against our values and our principles to participate in pay for play. So. Some of the safeguards, we've been thinking a lot about this. I've been the AD at Dartmouth for 3 years, and it's certainly been a hot topic amongst when the athletic directors get together. And without getting into all the details, because it's always evolving, that rule, but essentially I'm signing an attestation as the athletic director to say that any money that's directed through true NIL is in no way directed, either indirectly or directly at any of our institutional staff members or coaches' direction. So you have that top point guard, you have that top quarterback that you really want. They can have an NIL deal, again, that real NIL deal as I just described, but it's not an inducement for recruiting, or if somebody wants to go in the transfer portal, it's not something to retain. It's really the spirit of it. We talk a lot about that. Like we can have, the rules are only as good as the integrity of those who are following it. And we talk a lot as ADs about the need to adhere to our values in the Ivy League and again, adhere to the presidential directive to that pay for play is not our model. And I'll add, we've always been different. The Ivy League, you talked about the financial aid, at a time where scholarships were offered across the country for decades upon decades. It's all need-based financial aid in the Ivy League. So we've always been different. This is just another layer of difference.
And what is the limit for what you have to attest to?
Yeah, so it's really any deal, but we also see analyze and evaluate every deal $2,000 and above. So the Ivy League has been keeping records for the past few years since NIL became, permissible in the NCAA landscape.
So that figure that UCLA mentioned of $5 million, very different from what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's a little different.
So what's the downstream impact if there's potentially cuts in other programs? Do you benefit from, say, Olympic sports, skiing, other things. Talk a little bit about the downstream impact.
Yeah, we see a lot of opportunity there, and we're already realizing some of that from our coaches telling us that and you had some of my colleagues, across the country, Power 4 institutions on that panel earlier, is that the reality is that there's a de-emphasis of the whatever those sports are designated. Typically, they're both men's and women's basketball, football, and there might be a fourth or fifth sport. This morning, women's volleyball was named, I think, by Ohio State. And what's happening there is that, it's always happened at that level. There's always been a differentiation or tiering at the Power 4 level, where the investments are made. That's coaches' salaries, budget, so on, staffing. But now you have presidents and chancellors coming out publicly saying, our reality is that we want to have a broad-based program. We're not going to cut sports, but we're going to invest in these 4, 5, 6 sports, and the rest will be rendered essentially club. And when that happens, that means a reduction in scholarship offerings, perhaps reductions in roster size. Well, we're there. Now the pool has increased for us. So Nina King was here earlier. There was a sport that there was a young man going to compete there, was told that he didn't have that opportunity anymore. And who'd they call? They called us. And we're excited about that because we have 35 varsity sports. We are not cutting sports. We are maintaining that. It's very important and central to who we are, and we will reap the benefit. And now our coaches, and we talk a lot about this as a true advantage and opportunity for us to capitalize on.
So what kind of NIL deals are your students getting? Maybe not like what Arch Manning is getting, but describe what they're doing. Social media posts, things like that.
Yeah, it's a mix. And again, this has been the case since it's been rendered permissible. It's the sports camp. It's the back in the hometown or locally, just using their name to say, hey, I'm a softball pitcher at a Division I level. I'm an All Ivy League participant, and I can teach you how to build your pitching skills, and using their name, image, or likeness. It's social media posts. It's the offensive line getting a deal at the local pizza place. It's those kinds of places, which again, we are very supportive of real NIL.
So let's talk a little bit about labor. Last year, the men's basketball team voted 13-2 to unionize, and the school said it would not negotiate and said we are dealing with students, not employees, and said we would take this issue to the Supreme Court. So earlier this year, they pulled back on that. But what happened? Tell us about that from your perspective.
Yeah, first I'll tell you, if you would have told me in July of 2022 when I started that job that Dartmouth men's basketball would be the first, collegiate Division I athletics team to vote to unionize, I don't know what I would have told you, but I would have thought you were crazy. That is so for so many reasons. Dartmouth has a long history of supporting unions, including student worker unions. Let me first say that. But as I said earlier, we view the athletics endeavor first and foremost at its core as educational in nature. There are certainly examples, perhaps you talked to ADs earlier today, that have athletic departments where revenue, driving revenue is one of the highest priorities. That's not our model. And so, as President Sion Beilock has said in op-eds nationally, and that we work very closely together, is that we believe and support unions. Our student athletes are not employees, and we'll go all the way to the Supreme Court to show that. What ended up happening is they withdrew their effort, the unionization effort. It was the best, one of the best New Year's Eve presents ever, and the team, I'll add, went on to an Ivy League season, which was the most successful Ivy League season in 25 years after that. And I was there cheering them on at the Ivy League tournament. I'll tell you, too, speaking to a couple student athletes without revealing too much of our conversations post-withdrawal, it was really fascinating because, first and foremost, again, we're an educational institution. They learned a lot through that. They learned a lot by working together, by working with the union, reflecting on, is this who we are? Is this really, how important is this to? And I think that's a win. I think a lot of growth, personal growth, came from the experience for everybody all around. But I expect it, we'll see how it continues to unfold. And there's some activity in DC around, obviously, student athletes as employees.
Yes, the SCORE Act has been introduced in Congress that specifically says that students are not employees. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. I agree.
So we talked a little bit about Olympic sports earlier this morning, something of a concern about that UCLA has. What about Olympic sports at Dartmouth? Talk about the history there.
Yeah, one of my favorite nuggets is that there's never been a Winter Olympics without a Dartmouth student athlete, current or former. Isn't that cool? That's pretty amazing. We take it really seriously. Again, we see the opportunity really in this current landscape, as I just outlined in a previous answer, and also broad-based sports sponsorship is very, very important to us. Our executive director of the Ivy League, Robin Harris, was recently named to the USOPC board. I think it's paramount. It's incredible that she'll have a voice in that room. And yeah, I think I'm worried about it nationally, though. I'm really worried about it because of the elements that I highlighted earlier. I think the educational value of just participating in sport at the Division I level is transformational, and we hold true to that, as do my 7 Ivy peers.
So you came from some really big-time sport programs, Notre Dame, West Point. Talk a little bit about the difference between that and Ivy League sports, even though you're all Division I.
I would say there's actually more similarities than differences. You know, again, I've been so fortunate, 3 really distinct institutions, and that's something I've been really fortunate to be a part of that and the learning that occurs there. I think how it's different is certainly at Notre Dame, Jack Swarbrick was the director of athletics when I was there, great friend and mentor, and you know, the things he is incredibly one of the brightest strategic minds in college athletics. He has since stepped down now and retired, but we were talking about what was coming, all the things you've talked about today, in like 2015 in our executive team meetings, because he just has an uncanny ability to see around not just the next corner, but like the next 5 corners, and so thinking and wrestling with that at that level really helped prepare me for, in a lot of ways, and at West Point, the distinction of West Point and you know, being an academy who competes at the highest level, FBS football, can line up. And you know, when we were there, in a bowl game, we beat an SEC team. Like, there's nothing, if you were to put all that into an algorithm, I don't think it ever comes out with that, because there's no one on the other sideline that would have chosen Army over that school, but we still lined up and beat them. So I learned a lot about just true spirit, heart, competitive team spirit, and the importance of culture, especially as a retention tool. So a lot of similarities to here. I think it prepared me in so many ways to think about just, this is complex. There's no playbook for this. The fact that we were, you know, that our basketball team unionized, you know, when we got word of that, there literally was no playbook. Like one talked about unionizing within the past decade, but they never looked at the votes at Northwestern football and so on. But yeah, so I think what it's done is I think first and foremost the alignment and the teamwork required of my role, our entire team in athletics, but also with our President Bylock is a phenomenal leader in his position, Dartmouth, so well in today's world, and also our board of trustees. It's really important that we're all aligned, and that's what I would say is, I wouldn't say it's more important, but at this point in time, it's paramount, and we have that at Dartmouth.
Because you're not dealing with the same issues and intensity as you know, your peers earlier today, dealing with agents and really complicated revenue sharing agreements. It just seems to be a little bit simpler. Is that fair to say?
It feels intense. I think I wouldn't say it's simpler, it's different. You know, we have put a high priority on revenue production, and why? Because we want to, in philanthropy, we've landed the biggest gift in Dartmouth athletics history. We're investing all that back into health, wellness support, you know, development of our student athletes. And there's no athletic director in the country that would say we have enough people and money to do all the things we want to do. But it's just, they're different. There are different pressures and considerations in my environment. But I am happy that I have a lot of friends who are mentors, friends who are Power 4 ADs, and I talk to them, and also Power 4 coaches actually in the sports of basketball and football specifically, and they'll say, somebody will have a great game on a Saturday night, and they're in the office on Monday morning saying, I want to renegotiate my deal. I'm glad we don't have to deal with that.
Wow, that's intense.
That's really intense.
So we talked a little bit about revenue generation. What are you doing at Dartmouth to find some more revenue?
Yeah, we've assembled a team to think more. You know, we brought more data-driven decision-making into it. So we've set new records with ticket sales and our sponsorships in each of the past 2 years. We've also maximized our Nike deal. I'm really proud to say that we have a long-standing relationship with Nike. We negotiated an extension that is on par with multiple Big Ten institutions, and we're so fortunate to have that. And we just, again, why it's important, and also we put a high priority in building out our athletics fundraising team because the philanthropy, again, like allows us to retain the best coach educators, attract the best coach educators, and also invest in infrastructure, which we've done. A lot of that money that I've talked about, we've reinvested into creating new athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches. We're the only Ivy League institution with 2 full-time registered dietitians, sports nutritionists, mental performance, counseling and sports psychology. Like, that's where we can make our difference and our distinction. Again, deliver on our promise that we make during the recruiting process.
And talked about the named coaches, and you have a named position.
I do.
Endowed.
Yeah. The Haldeman family. Thank you, Haldeman family. That's been a high priority for us because, again, any athletic department in the country, including ours, sustained income over time is really important. So we're nearing, and a lot of this work started long before I arrived, but it's been a high priority to endow positions. We're nearing, 30 or more positions, and just closed another gift within the last 3 weeks for an assistant coach. And yeah, and they understand it. We have to get better at it, and something I spend a lot of time thinking about is more strategic and thoughtful about how we can articulate the importance of that to us as an athletics department for sustainable funding over time.
What's the going rate for an endowed coaching position?
Well, if you want to have that conversation, I'm happy to have it. We can have that off camera. And that goes for everybody else. I know there's no Dartmouth grads, but if anybody wants to talk about an endowed position, I'm happy to.
So we talked a little bit about conference expansion earlier today. So much upheaval going on, but the Ivy League is an athletic conference. 8 schools, been around for quite a long time. Do you think there would ever be any expansion? You know, Stanford had to find a new home.
Yeah.
Would they ever add schools?
I actually have an announcement to make today. No, I'm kidding.
I saw your face.
People got cameras out. Look at that. Stanford's new AD, by the way, is a Dartmouth grad, John Donahoe, former Nike CEO. And I'm one of 8 votes, so I can't speak on behalf of the league. I certainly, something that attracted me to the role is certainly the stability of the league and the knowledge and really the embracing of who we are. The Ivy League knows, we know who we are, and as evidenced by everything I've shared today about NIL, our values, all of that. So those decisions will be made well above me by presidents, but I would plan on playing the same other 7 schools next year. I'll put it that way.
Great. And last question. So there was a change in football this year in the Ivy League for one more game. Can you explain what the difference is and why that decision was made? Yeah,
since its inception, the Ivy League was not allowed to participate in the FCS playoffs. So there's FBS, which is, the Notre Dames, the Ohio States, the Duke, and so on, and FCS football championship subdivision. And Ivy League was never allowed to. The presidents voted. I am so thrilled that our president, Sian Beilock, she's one of the, I'm a very competitive person. I've never met somebody maybe more competitive than me, and she's one, and she certainly embraces the role that athletics can play on our college campus and the educational role. And also, we should strive to win if we're going to do something. So why not test ourselves? That's the promise we make. Football was the last one that didn't have access to a national championship. So the presidents, behind closed doors, I wasn't a part of any of that. But when that decision came down and I called my head coach, like it was a day of elation, and our guys on the team are very, very excited about that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was lots of fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
And I wanted to say thank you to our title sponsor, Invesco QQQ, for making this breakout session possible. Now let everyone enjoy the rest of their food and oh, I'm sorry, was that the wrong one? No. Okay, that's the closing one, sorry. Okay, we still have got one more. Come on up, Jonathan. So we're going to talk more about money and revenue for this session. We heard in the first session with college sports, teams have to raise $20.5 million this year. That is a daunting challenge, especially in this environment where We've seen schools' budgets having to be cut. A lot. Nina King talked about that at Duke. Schools have had layoffs. Could you set the stage, and why do colleges need to raise revenue now, and what are some of the low-hanging fruit that they can find?
Sure. Well, first off, Janet, thank you so much for having me today and for everybody joining. When we think about revenue generation in college sports, there have been a lot of conversations this year that I never thought we'd have. Similar to, as Mike mentioned previously, we asked him, back in 22 about, I think, NIL, right? What would that look like? When we talk about revenue generation today, whether it's a family name on a stadium that we just had a conversation yesterday and said, hey, Jonathan, if you could find us a corporation that wants to put their name on our stadium or arena, and this is a high-profile school that you would never think this would happen for, like, we're ready to go. Jersey patches, while they haven't been approved yet, we certainly think that there's a real opportunity there. Multimedia rights, I don't think they've been as maximized as well as they can, and going after the right corporate partners, the right national sponsors, the right national partners. And then you look at what's happening right now too, field logos, the apron logo on the basketball court, so many different new assets that you've seen in professional sports for a very long time that are now coming to fruition in college athletics. Some schools are embracing them more so than previously, but you're seeing really every school want to have that discussion today versus 5 years ago. We're never putting a name on this stadium. It's always going to be XYZ Family Stadium, or we're never putting a jersey patch. It's sacred ground, I think one athletic director said. I think all that changes. I think everybody's focused on maximizing revenue. And when you look at the P&L of these athletic departments, I believe one of the athletic directors said this in the earlier session, right? Like, it hasn't been run like a very good business. And so what are some things you can put in place to talk about expense mitigation, but also revenue maximization? And then the word profit, right? That has never really been talked about in college athletics. The word profit is so valuable right now. And how do you get to that point? Because the word profit can get you better players. You can then work on trying to find ways to maximize NIL as well, to pay above the cap. And I think the most successful schools in athletics going forward will be the ones that are thinking outside the box and looking for those unique ways to maximize revenue.
How do you do that, say, with ticket sales, something that has been the mainstay of bringing in revenue?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in ticket sales. As I was telling somebody before, I've not been in this building since Bank of America laid me off back in 2011, but it's all worked out, so it's come full circle. And in ticket sales in the last 15, 16 years, you've really seen an evolution of I think two things. Number one, the secondary market. So many of you here are probably purchasing tickets, whether Knicks, Rangers, Yankees, whatever it may be in the local New York area, on StubHub, Vivid Seats, SeatGeek. Many of those tickets will come from companies like ourselves that are working with the entity or what we call the rights holder to maximize the return on those tickets. We might not want to price them as high as we do on the secondary for a general consumer on the primary, but we're going to do that on the secondary. So I think that's one way. The other way is creating new premium experiences. We've seen fans attend less events really since COVID happened, and we started to see this before COVID. But fans are attending less events, but they're spending more when they do attend those events. So if you spend $1,000 on 5 events last year, maybe you go to 3 events this year and you spend the same $1,000. So you're really trading up for the seats that you want to go into. Upper level seats, football stadiums, basketball arenas are very challenging to sell. Doesn't matter even if it's a high profile game. No one wants to sit there. We compete with TV and we compete with people's time. So how do you create more premium experiences and even reduce capacity in a football stadium or an arena to maximize the return on that? So creating new premium both inside the stadium or arena and outside, and finding those new real estate opportunities to put that premium in is so valuable to college campuses.
So we've been hearing a lot about private equity coming into college sports, but we haven't really heard any deals happening. How does it work, and how would they make money? How would they exit?
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah, so what's funny is there are many athletic directors, universities that say, hey, we're never going to take private equity. The reality is, though, We hand partners capital every day. The legacy MMR providers hand those schools capital every day, and they're all backed by private equity. So they're already effectively taking private equity. The private equity, I think, Janet, that you're speaking to is, will a entity come in and take a stake in an athletic department? I think the answer is yes. I think it's happening. I think there's a lot of behind door, closed door deals that are happening from that perspective. I'll be honest, I didn't think that would happen. I thought that would be very difficult. I do think it's much easier at a private school. I think Ross Bjork said earlier today, as a public institution, I think that's going to be very difficult. That said, when Elevate announced our collegiate investment initiative, we had 2 deals that are already done, and ours are more focused from a debt perspective, right? So it's upfront capital. Ideally, we get paid back via revenue streams over time. But the difference between us and anybody else that's out there that's putting private equity to work in college athletics or says they will, we're an operator at heart. So I'm probably one of the few people at Elevate that's never actually been on the team side, build a technology company that Elevate acquired. But we have 500 plus people who have been at professional sports teams, colleges and universities, F1, various different entities that are working on the ground with our collegiate partners to help them maximize the return on that capital. And I think taking money from an entity that's not going to provide support is very different than taking capital from somebody that can help you operate more effectively, maximize the return on that capital, and help you grow. I think if traditional private equity, in my opinion, will put schools in a more challenging situation 5 to 10 years from now. They're really kicking the can down the road. They're solving an immediate problem today, but they're kicking the can down the road. Whereas I think, our strategy, or if they're looking at it from a debt perspective, we're not taking an ownership stake. So sure, we might take a portion of a revenue stream over a period of time, but at the end of 10 years, when that new renovated stadium is built or a brand new stadium is built, we own nothing. The school owns everything. And I think that's what's most important. And that's what I think will be sustainable on a long-term basis. With all of our partners, we talk about sustainable revenue streams. It's so important right now to think about long-term and not just focus on the right now. Because you're going to put your predecessor, if you're an athletics director, in a very tough position down the road if you sign a 10-year deal that siphons off a portion of your revenue streams, or you give up 49% of the athletic department, which could effectively happen and is probably happening as we speak.
So you're really talking more of a private credit fund than a private equity fund.
Yes, I've lost the finance lingo a long time ago, but yes, credit, debt, yes, exactly.
So what happens then after 10 years? What happens to the asset?
Yeah, so I mean, after, for example, the discussions we're having right now are how can we help you build, or how can we help you renovate a stadium? Most of the stadiums in college athletics, whether it's football or even basketball arenas, have not had a significant amount of renovations or capital put into those stadiums or arenas in the last 50 to 60 years. They've done some minor touch-ups here and there. Some have done more than others. But there's a significant need, not just for deferred maintenance, but actually to modernize these stadiums, to build some of the premium that we've talked about. And so if we're putting in, say, $100 million to a large university, ideally, we're putting that into a project that's going to generate incremental revenue. In 10 years, we're going to have payback on that $100 million, maybe plus a return, and we're helping them operate and maximize revenue. And ideally, we're putting them in a really strong position. So yes, in 10 years, they can manage everything on their own. Now, they might still want to keep us aboard from a consultant perspective to help them manage and continue to grow revenue streams. But the reality is, we want to put them in a better place then than they are today.
So I noticed one of your investors was a pension fund.
Yes.
Pension funds can't make $5 million investments. They have to make $50 million or even $100 million.
Yes.
Why are they looking at funds like this?
So I think when you think about the disruption that's happening in college athletics right now, the reality is, if I told you I know what's going to happen, I'm lying to you. No one knows what's going to happen. And we have 70 plus partners in the college space. We're talking to them every day. I think the reason that we're working with them is no one is more well positioned to not only access these campuses and the decision makers on campus, but also to come in and put that capital to work make sure that they don't lose money, and also maximize the return on that capital for both our partners on the finance side, but then also our school partners too. I think that was a huge reason why they wanted to ultimately work with us and partner with us. And I think that's important, right? I think there's a lot of companies that are out there, firms, don't want to name any, but the reality is, like, they are not operators at heart, and they don't have a group that's on the ground with 70+ universities already today talking to athletic directors. Right after this, I'm getting on a plane headed to University of Louisville and then headed to University of Florida, right? Two of our amazing partners, and we talk to them, we visit with them, we're at games all the time, meeting and understanding where we can help them maximize revenue.
Yeah, maximize revenue. It's not something you would think about in college sports 10 or 20 years ago, like its intensity today.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the initial company, Dynamic Pricing Partners, right, that Elevate acquired, trying to get people to understand raising prices to maximize the return on what I think is one of their most valuable assets, a ticket, was like pulling teeth, right? And it was very challenging. However, now, 95% of schools are leveraging our services or competitors' services in order to make that happen.
So one thing you probably can't control is, the price tag at schools. I was just on Bloomberg Radio earlier today talking about why is it $93,000? So why are colleges looking to maximize revenue if they have all this money coming in from tuition?
Yeah, I think when I went to Cornell, it was $46,000. So paying double that price, I can't even imagine right now. And my student loans would have been larger. But I think the reality is, I don't understand kind of the campus side of the business, but athletic departments want to show that they can operate as self-sufficient entities. And they've never been able to do that before, right? They're either operating at a deficit, they're getting economic support from campus or the state or whomever that is. And I think looking at this entire new environment, if they want to hit the rev share target, but then also ideally find additional ways to support their student athletes, I think it's so important to show that, hey, we're self-sufficient, we can be a profitable entity, we can also carry and help support all the Olympic sports. I think that's one of the most important things. Mike talked about a lot of the athletic directors earlier on stage too. I mean, 2 or 3 sports are going to carry the entire athletic department, but how do you find unique ways to add incremental revenue and value to continue to grow and support those other sports that aren't, but are so important to, I think, maybe many people in this room, but certainly across the country.
And last question, what has surprised you the most about money in college sports?
How much of it there is and how much opportunity that are on all of these campuses that are untapped. I mean, we just signed a partnership with Auburn and our partners at Peachtree to bring concerts to these on-campus arenas. Everybody wants a stadium show, Morgan Wallen or whomever it is, and we all do. I'd love to have 100 stadium shows. Reality is those are very few and far between. So how can we help them build sustainable revenue models at these arenas they already have on campus? They don't really have to do anything except turn the lights on. But there's so many other opportunities like that. We turned a storage room at one of our Big Ten partners into a new club space, charging $10,000 per person per year. There's no view of the field. They sold 100 passes, I think, instantly.
What's a club space?
So a high-end, all-inclusive club space between where the players walk out. So you can see the players walk out to the field. You can't see the field. There's a couple TVs in there. So you're going before the game, halftime, after the game. The reality is that was a storage room that was underutilized space. And so how do we, there's a lot of storage rooms in these stadiums if you ever walked them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of, think of New York City real estate, right? Like that's what these stadiums and arena operators need, or schools need to think right? You can't underutilize that real estate. It's the most important asset they have, and it's very hard to create more, especially at a public institution and even private institutions. And so trying to find ways, either CapEx light opportunities to maximize revenue is something that I think we'll continue to see. You're seeing it on the field too. On the field, behind the end zones, if you watch most college football games, tomorrow, Saturday, you're going to see kind of end zone suites, right? Some are temporary, some are permanent. but those are easy low-hanging fruit that, nearly every school now is developing because they ran out of suite spaces and premium spaces. And so all these new areas to generate an extra 10, 15, 20K a game, they add up. And when you're staring down 20.5 million and you're laying off staff, I think it's important to try to uncover every single dollar that you can.
So that's not helping with tuition.
Oh yeah. So back to tuition. I don't know a solve for that. I don't think tuition can continue to grow, but that's probably a completely different discussion.
Other conversation.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
And again, thank you to our title sponsor, Invesco QQQ, for making this breakout session possible. We'll now let everyone enjoy the rest of their food and network for a bit. Around 2:15, we'll start making our way downstairs to the plenary room for our afternoon program, beginning at 2:30 p.m. sharp. See you there.